Get the car here? No. Good evening. So it's nice to see you came back after last time. So in the next 40 minutes or so, I'm going to recap what we saw, what we did last week. Then I'm going to ask you the question which we're going to deal with this week, and I'm going to give two possible answers. Adding on a third answer, we already know. How do we know that? We'll find out later. So altogether, we'll have three answers to the question I'm going to pose, and then I'm going to say something about it, about what I think the meaning of it is, and then we're going to say something about what we're going to do next week. So that is what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes. So we'll start with last week. Last week, we asked why candles, and the answer we gave more or less was that candles represent the spirit of Hashem. And whether or not there was a miracle, and we saw there are two traditions. There is one that there was a miracle, and there was one that was not exactly a miracle, but it was the Mesiut Nefesh of the Chashmonaim, Davka for lighting the Chanukah. And whether it was this or that, it was very important. And I suggested it was very important because of what Hashem says to Zechariah, one of the last prophets before prophecy ends, before the children of Israel come back to the land of Israel and reestablish the temple. And he is saying, Lo b'chayil velo b'chayil velo b'koach ki im beruchi amar Hashem. It's with Hashem's spirit, and for centuries now the Jews are living through Hashem's spirit. No need to resort to violence or to any sort of rebellion against the other people, fighting with the other people. And here, all of a sudden, the Maccabees take the sword and the shield and they engage in fighting. And who knows? Hashem's last instruction was lo b'chayil velo b'chosen. Maybe Ruach Hashem, maybe the spirit of Hashem has left the people, but then they come into the Beit HaMikdash and they have this great miracle of the oil lighting 8 days, and they say, Hashem is with us. Imagine what that meant to the people, and to celebrate that, we light candles 8 days. And as we were asking the question about the candles, we also referred to the 8-day question, right? We asked ourselves why it was 8 days, and we saw two answers for that too. The one answer was, well, the miracle, it was 8 days. It was supposed to be only one day, and then it was 8 days. Now, why 8 days? Because it takes 8 days to become tahor. Why would it take 8 days to become tahor? So there are different versions of this amongst the Rishonim. I'm just letting you know, because if someone is a tmemet, if someone is tameh because they came into contact with the dead, then it takes 7 days to become tahor. They need to have the red heifer water with the red heifer ashes sprinkled on them, and on the and then they wait 7 days, and on the seventh day they could go to the mikveh and become pure on the eighth day. So, and then on the eighth day they can now prepare pure oil. Now the Chashmonaim, the Maccabim, they came from the battlefield. They are all Tme'ei Mitim, and if they want to make shemen that won't be Tme'emet, they need to wait 8 days. And lo and behold, they have this miracle that the shemen was there for 8 days. So that is one explanation of the 8 days, the miracle. Then we saw another answer according to the version that there wasn't 8 days, and that was that it simply took them 8 days to rebuild the Mizbeach. They needed to carefully take apart the old Mizbeach that was defiled and made an altar to Zeus and the other Greek gods. And now they have to take it apart, put away the stones, and rebuild a new Mizbeach and plaster it. All of that took 8 days. So they then celebrated those 8 days that they were busy with the Mizbeach. But then we said, just a minute, if it was the Mizbeach, why do we celebrate with lights? So he said, oh no, that was their dedication to lighting the menorah. Even though they didn't have a menorah, they had those spades that they stuck in the ground and they lit, and to remember their Mesirut Nefesh, their dedication, we light 8 days, the candles 8 days, because again, their dedication in this version serves just as the miracle. It serves to say that as we had to, our ancestors, the Hashmonaim, had to fight against the Seleucids. Thank you, against the Seleucids. But what could they? But they still held on to the spirit of Hashem, and that is shown by the fact that they were so dedicated to lighting the menorah that represents that spirit of Hashem. And we want to remember of all this fighting. We don't want to, as we saw in the Meshech Chochmah, we don't want to. It's not the victory. It's not the fact that they were warriors and very brave. That's important. But the really important part was that all that was done out of dedication for Hashem, for Hashem's spirit, and that is manifested by the menorah. So that we saw last week, and today I'm going to ask again, even though I just said why it's 8 days, I'm now going to ask again, why 8 days? Because I could still ask the question, okay, the miracle, I understand. The miracle had to be 8 days, as I explained just now. It takes 8 days to do the oil. But according to the other miracle, it seems arbitrary. Okay, it took them 8 days to build the Mizbech, but still, why 8 days? And also the miracle. Okay, but why 8 days? Meaning, there was a miracle of 8 days, but for instance, the Beit Yosef says we could celebrate only 7 out of the 8 because the first day wasn't really a miracle. The first day, we expected the oil to burn. And then, wow, the second day, third day. So you have 7 days of wonder. So maybe we should celebrate 7 days. Or maybe we should just celebrate 1 day every year. Like to have an 8-day festival seems a bit over the top. Like, why did we go for the 8 days? So there's a very interesting source in Sefer Maccabim. There are four books of Maccabim unrelated to each other. 4 books that relate to the story of Chanukah. All are called Maccabim, written at different times in history. One of them, this is the second Maccabees book. It's just called the second, not because it was written second in order, but just that's what it is referred to. It's not part of our Tanakh, but I think it is part of the Christian canon. But this was written originally. Was this written? No, this wasn't written originally.
Hebrew, right? Some
I'm
were
sorry?
written in Greek.
Some were written in Hebrew. This one was originally written in Greek, not in Hebrew. And it was written in North Africa by someone, we're not sure who. And therefore, I brought the English translation instead of the Hebrew translation. Well, I could bring a 19th century Hebrew translation, but I might as well bring an English translation. So this is of chapter 10. This book, this Maccabees 2 opens in a very interesting way. It opens with 2 letters written by the Kohanim in Yerushalayim to Kohanim in a temple in Egypt. In Egypt, there was a temple called Mikdash Chonyo. And it seems like the priests in Yerushalayim, the Hashmonaim priests, are quite friendly with the priests in Egypt. Now we know that according to the halakha, it's a bit problematic to have a temple. Never mind outside Yerushalayim, outside of Israel, in Yeb, in Egypt. Very, very strange. Which shows that the Hashmonaim probably weren't exactly orthodox. Yes, they were very dedicated to Hashem. They kept the mitzvot, but how much they were. We know that Chazal and the Hashmonaim had a few differences between them. So they were in a way dedicated to Hashem, but in a way maybe not too dedicated to halakha as we understand it. Okay. Anyhow, so in that letter already, they mentioned something about Sukkot. But here in chapter 10 of the book of Maccabees, it's mentioned in a very interesting way. Now, upon the same day that the temple has been polluted by the strangers, on the very same day it was cleansed again, to wit, on the 25th day of the month of Kislev. So, indeed, the tradition was that on the 25th of Kislev, not only it was restored, the temple to Hashem, but also originally it was captured by the Hellenists beforehand, a few years before. It was also on the 25th of Kislev. So the last Kohen Gadol that was more or less dedicated to Hashem, his name was Chonyo, and he ran away and probably established that temple in Egypt that I told you before. And yes, something right. And his brother? No, not his brother. The one who took over his place, he was called, there was one Yason, then Menelaos, very Greek names, right? Because these were basically, they saw themselves as Hellenists, and they turned the temple into a pagan temple, and now it's recaptured from them and restored as a temple of Hashem. And now at this point, they write to their friends in Egypt that they should also keep Chanukah. But this is how Chanukah is now described. And they kept 8 days with joy. Okay, so on the 25th, they come in and they now keep 8 days. But now why 8 days? After the manner of the Feast of the Tabernacles, modeled on Sukkot, remembering that not long before they had kept the Feast of the Tabernacles when they were in the mountains and in the mountain and in dens like wild beasts. So that very year, they were fighting through Sukkot. They were hiding in the mountains, in the caves, and they couldn't really celebrate Sukkot as they would have wanted to. And we have to also realize that those days, especially Sukkot, all the festivals, but especially Sukkot of all the festivals was celebrated mainly in the temple. For instance, today we take the Arba Minim, we take it throughout the 7 days of Sukkot, but during those days, outside of the temple, you took it only 1 day. Only in the temple, you took it for 7 days. And in the temple, you had Nisuch HaMayim, which was a very special ritual that took place over Sukkot. And there were a lot of korbanot and special things. It is one of the chagim of Aliyah LaRegel. So the temple played a very central role in the festival. And they didn't have the temple, let alone they didn't have the temple, they were also in the mountains and in the caves. They couldn't really celebrate Sukkot, so they decide we're now going to celebrate Sukkot on the 25th of Kislev. So on the 25th of Kislev, they're now celebrating Sukkot. Now, it is not going to be the first time that the temple is dedicated during Sukkot. Well, the first time was the real Sukkot. This time it was a pseudo Sukkot, but it has to do with dedicating the temple. Shlomo Melech also dedicated the temple around the time of Sukkot. Ezra and Nehemiah, when they built the second temple, it was also dedicated around the festival of Sukkot. And now, for the third time, they're now rededicating the temple. They perhaps thought it fit to rededicate the temple around the festival of Sukkot. It's not exactly Sukkot. Okay, it's not so long after Sukkot, right? It's only a few months, and they celebrate Sukkot, and they do this. Now, one might say this is crazy. This is not a legitimate source. This is outside of our canon. Maybe we shouldn't trust it altogether. Maybe we should just chuck it aside. But what, in my mind, made it kosher is that Aruch HaShulchan, Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein, the great 19th century posek, and Aruch HaShulchan, by the way, is a major halachic work. Before the Mishnah Berurah was written by the Chafetz Chaim, for a few decades, the Aruch HaShulchan was the number one source of paskening halacha. And even today, he brings all the different opinions. A very, 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 very important work. And he brings in Hilchot Chanukah, he quotes this Sefer Maccabim as one of the reasons why Chanukah is for 8 days.
Sorry,
so
maybe it's a bit petty, but Sukkot, as you just mentioned before, is 7 days.
You're right. Sukkot is 7 days, but then we have Shmini Atzeret. Right.
Yeah.
So they meant Sukkot with Shmini Atzeret. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Now, in brackets, I will say there's another connection that we're going to further explore next week between Chanukah and Pesach. Not only Chanukah and Sukkot. Can anyone think, before we see the next source, what possible connection can you see between Chanukah and Pesach? Oh, who starts as early as Chanukah? I know people start early, but that early? Sorry?
We see miracles.
Miracles, true.
Destruction of the Jewish people or physical destruction.
Okay, we're facing destruction and we're saved. That's true, but that we had also on Purim. But you're right. Okay, so let's see the source. Velama korin et ha'alel. Okay, this is from Psik Tarabati. It's a compilation of midrashim, mainly on haftarot. So Psik Tarabati is a very interesting source. It is midrashim on haftarot that are said on special Shabbatot. We have Shabbatot that have special haftarot, not according to whatever parsha it is, but according to the time of the year. So Shabbat Chanukah is one of them. We have a special haftarah for Chanukah, right, from Zechariah, which we quoted last week. And we have also, what other parshiot? Well, Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, we have a special parsha. Shabbat HaGadol, very good. I'm sorry, the 4 parshiot, right? Chol HaMoed, yes. And there
Shabbat Shuvah.
Shabbat Shuvah, yes. And the few Shabbatot leading to Shabbat, right? We have the three Shabbatot between Yud Zayin Betamuz and Tisha B'Av, Tlata de Puanuta, and then we have Sheva de Nechemta, the 7 Haftarot of comfort. So all of these Haftarot, special Haftarot that are not necessarily connected to the Parsha but to the calendar, are elaborated in this midrashic compilation, and so it's a midrashim that stems from the haftarah. Okay, so this is about the haftarah of Chanukah, and it starts. And one of the things that asks us, "V'lama korin et ha'alel?" Why do you say Hallel on Chanukah? So it gives an interesting answer. First, mipnei shekatav El Hashem vaya'er lanu Isur Chag ba'avotim ad karnot hamizbeach. Isur Chag ba'avotim ad karnot hamizbeach is what? It's Chanukah, but El Hashem vaya'er lanu. Ya'er lanu is did I say Chanukah? I meant Sukkot. Isur Chag ba'avotim ad karnot hamizbeach is referring especially to Sukkot, but vaya'er lanu is hints to Chanukah. So we say okay, but velama en korim bepurim. Okay. Why not on Purim? כתב להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את כל חיל עם ומדינה צרים אותם ואין קוראים אותה אלא. Okay, so it says that we fought against all the armies of the other nations on Purim. However, ואין קוראים אלא על מפלתה של מלכות ומלכות של אחשוורוש הייתה קיימת. The great kingdom of Achashverosh continued to reign even after Purim. לכן אין קוראים, אבל במלכות של יוון שקילה אותה הקדוש ברוך הוא, well, not exactly immediately, התחילו נותנים המנון ושבח ואומרים לשעבר, היינו עבדים לפרעה, עבדים ליוון, עכשיו עבדיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא אנו, הללו עבדי השם. So it's ממש עבדים היינו, yes, עבדים היינו לפרעה במצרים, עבדים היינו לאנטיוכוס מלך יוון, and now we are free, we are עבדיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, and as we say, in the Hallel, Hallelu Avdei Hashem. So there is an element of me'avdut lechirut in Chanukah that we don't have, for instance, in Purim, because in Purim, akati avdei Achashverosh anan, as the Gemara says in a few other places, where we were still servants or subservient to Achashverosh or to the Persian kingdom, as opposed to the miracle of Chanukah that gave us our total freedom. We were free people. We had our own kingdom.
My understanding is very, very far from the emes.
It took many years.
But I'm saying tens and tens and tens of years. We kept on fighting.
Yes.
We kept on fighting.
Right.
Some of the brothers were killed later. I mean, it was a ceasefire basically.
Yes.
That's all it was.
26 years. So again, it's interesting, and there is a lot that we could say about it, but in the Gemara, for instance, it tells us of the miracle of Chanukah, and then it says, "Leshana acheret kva'um va'asarum yamim tovim." On another year, it doesn't say the next year. It says on another year, it has been established and turned into a festival. It could be that other year was at the end of 26 years. Who knows when it was?
What was the 26 years?
The battle for freedom of the Hashmonaim against the
Syrian Greeks.
So the Seleucids. I'm sorry?
The Syrian Greeks.
The Syrian Greeks, we could refer, or the Hellenistic Jews, right? Those battles were on and off, but for a period of 26 years. Chanukah took place, I think, 5 years into the battle. They still had 21 years of battling the Greeks. But then again, think about Medinat Israel of our days. Right, we have it's also on and off. But
in 48 there was sovereignty.
I'm sorry.
In 48 there was sovereignty.
Right.
Unlike this.
Yes. But after 26 years, they gained their sovereignty, and perhaps at least according to the Psikta, that is part of the celebration. I think also according to the Rambam mentions when we saw that last. Did we see that? No, we didn't see that. We're going to see it next week, maybe. The Rambam mentions that when he tells us about the miracle of Chanukah, we did see that. I think we mentioned it last week. Then he says, "V'chazra malchut leIsrael yeter al 200 shana." It's not so clear how he got to 200 years, but part of what we celebrate on Chanukah, according to the Rambam, is Chazra malchut leIsrael. So it's not everyone. I don't know if everyone agrees upon it. It's a chidush, it's a novelty of the Rambam, but that's what he says. Okay. Anyhow.
So it's a military victory after 8 days.
The military victory actually took a long time. After 5 years, they got into Yerushalayim. The rededication of the temple was 8 days, either because it took them 8 days, or the miracle was 8 days, or as we see now, because Sukkot was 8 days. I now want to move on to another very interesting source that might shed light on the 8 days of Chanukah. So what we saw until now was, again, the miracle was 8 days, took them 8 days to dedicate the Mizbeach. And as we saw now, maybe they were celebrating Sukkot for 8 days. So it's a sort of a Sukkot dedication celebration. And now we're on to Masechet Avodah Zarah. In Masechet Avodah Zarah, the Gemara doesn't say anything about Chanukah, but the Gemara is talking about pagan festivals. There is a halacha that we're not supposed to do business with pagans before their festivals. Why? Because then they go and they give thanks to their gods for the good business that they did, and then we are part of their worship, right? Because we helped them and we did the business with them, and now they go and they thank their God. So we want to keep ourselves so far from Avodah Zarah that on the days before their festival, we don't do business with them. Okay, so now in order to know not to do business with them, the Gemara now has to tell us what are the dates of those festivals that we will know not to do business with them. Okay. by the way, this is not today. We don't keep this for various reasons. Already the Rishonim discuss it. In some way, maybe one could keep it, but למעשה, in many ways we don't. ואלו ידיהן של עובדי כוכבים. Okay, what are the days? So it's telling us there is a day called Kalanda, and there's a day called Saturnalia, and there's a day Kartisim and Gnusia. Okay, V'yom Gnusia shel Malchihem. Okay, the days that don't depend on a fixed calendar date is whenever the king becomes a king. So whenever his anniversary comes, they also, because they made it a festival to their gods, V'yom Aleida, the birthday of their kings. Okay. Okay, so in the Mishnah we mentioned Kalanda and Saturnalia. So what are these days? So in the Gemara, Rav Chanan bar Rava explains what these days are. And I'm now reading in line number 24. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava. Kalanda, what is that day? Shmona yamim achar tkufa. Okay, it's 8 days after what is called tkufa. The year is divided into 4 seasons, and the first day of the season is called tkufa. So there is the winter and summer that
solstice.
The solstice opens those seasons, and then we have the equinox in the middle of the season that basically. I'm sorry.
It's equinox is March and September, and the solstice.
Sorry. Yeah.
And December 21st.
Yeah. Thank you. Whatever Naomi said. So yes. So yes. Yes. Right. So that's the equinox are the middle days and the solstice. Thank you.
We change the seasons.
Sorry?
When we change
the days that change. So the day that starts winter is solstice, and that is the 21st of December.
This year.
Yes. So now in the Gregorian calendar, it's the 21st of September. In the Julian calendar, is that what it's called? Then it was I think a few days after. Okay, but it doesn't matter exactly when, but it's more or less this time of the year, more or less around Chanukah. So we have this festival called Kalanda, and it's 8 days after that day. So it starts with the solstice and ends after 8 days. Saturnalia shmona yamim lifnei tkufa. Okay, Saturnalia, or some call it, is to the god. This is a god that we're more familiar with, Saturn, right? So the day that was devoted to Saturn, that was 8 days before the solstice. V'simanach achor v'kedem tzartani. Okay, before and after. Okay, 8 days plus 8 days. Okay.
So they were back to back 16 days.
Yes. So we had 8 plus 8 that make two festivals, one after the other. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan. Now, what are these festivals? So we have a baita that tells us what is the origin of these festivals. לפי שראה אדם הראשון יום שמתמעט והולך. Adam HaRishon, on his very first year here on earth, he sees the days getting shorter. אמר, אוי לי, שמא בשביל שסרחתי עולם חשוך בעדי וחוזר לתוהו ובוהו. And he tells himself, oh no, perhaps because I sinned, slowly the world is getting darker until I'm going to sit in total darkness because of my sin. וזוהי מיתה שנכנסה עליי מן השמיים. And that is what Hashem meant when he says, ביום אכולך, from the tree, the day you'd eat, you're going to die. How are you going to die? Meaning the world is slowly going to end. And this is how it's ending, slowly but surely. עמד וישב 8 ימים בתענית ובתפילה. So as it was getting towards the solstice, then 8 days, every day, he's fasting and praying. כיוון שראה תקופת טבת, then comes a day, and he says, just a minute, today wasn't shorter than yesterday. Interesting. And he sees now all of a sudden the days start to get longer. So he says, perhaps it's just the law of nature. This is how nature goes. Days get shorter, but then they get longer again. Wonderful. So to thank Hashem for this, he makes an 8-day festival. So he had an 8-day of prayer and fast, and then 8 days of festival. לשנה אחרת, עשן לאלו לאלו ימים טובים. Okay, then later, he started, instead of fasting, to do both of them. He was probably a chassid, so he didn't want to fast and pray. So he decided, I'll celebrate it. So he celebrates the 8 days before and the 8 days later. So he did it for the sake of heaven. But then later on, humanity established it or turned it into a pagan day. So tell us, Chazal, that you have to understand the origins of these days are actually not pagan. It's Adam HaRishon. There's something to it, but then it became pagan. Now, why is it so important to Chazal to tell us that? Maybe it was pagan to begin with. Who cares? No, Chazal wanted to tell us, no, there's something about these festivals that are important. Now, it could be that just because they want us to know that. But it could be that Chazal are also hinting here to Chanukah, because we have only once where Chazal again tell us Leshana Acheret Kvaum V'Asaum. So here we have Leshana Acheret Asaan, and then Hu Kvaam L'Shem Shamayim V'hem Kvaum L'Shem. So this language of Leshana Acheret Kvaum V'Asaum we have only in one other place, and that is pertaining to Chanukah. We have when the Hashmonaim came and they came into the Mikdash, when the Gemara tells us about the whole story of the Nes, L'Shana Acheret, V'um V'Asaum, V'yamim Tovim Be'alel V'odah. So it could be that here Chazal are hinting through the language to Chanukah, and maybe what Chazal are telling us is this, because might come an Epicurus along and say, you think that you established Chanukah and it's because of your miracle over the Greeks. It's nothing like that. There's an ancient pagan festival, and the Jews just copied it, and later on they told themselves stories about Greeks and victories and other Mises, but it's this. So in order for that to not happen, so Chazal tells, we know about that festival. And you know what? Maybe there was something already about lights, and maybe it's not, right? It's not by chance that, right, you go to Chutz La'aretz, you go, all the Christian festivals also are filled with lights during this time of year. You go to other parts of the world. Lights festival during the solstice are common in many parts of the world. And Chazal might be telling us, look, Chanukah is also part of that in a way. So it doesn't contradict the story of Chanukah, but it's added on to it. It's another layer.
Again, here 8 is arbitrary. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was 8 days, so it doesn't. Really
right. Here 8 is really why 8 days? Why? I mean,
but why? But also like Brit Milah, something that's out TV.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's, I think all these 8, the number 8 is always connected to something that is beyond nature, just like Brit Milah is.
Yes. So you're right. We won't be going to that next level, but one should go to that next level to explain why 8 and the significance of 8, etc. At this point, I just want to point at different directions where we find the 8 and that it came to Chanukah, but obviously we have our homework cut for us, and that is to understand the significance of 8 altogether. As he said, Brit Milah, and in many other places we have the number 8, and surely there is significance to it. So we saw the number 8 as referring to Sukkot. We saw the number 8 as referring to Adam HaRishon, this ancient festival, and we saw the number 8 as referring to the miracle we saw the number 8 as referring to the dedication that that the Hashmonaim had when they came into Beit HaMikdash. If we put all of it together, then I think we could say that Chanukah has many layers to it. It reminds me when in the ogre, when the ogre and what's the donkey's name? I forgot the donkey's name. When Shrek and in Shrek, do you remember Shrek? Yeah. So, is his name Donkey? Okay. So Shrek and the donkey are going, and Shrek tells him that ogres are like onions. And he says, "What, you mean they smell as bad?" And he says, "No. They have layers. They have layers." Meaning, he says, "Inside, I have a very deep emotions." So we could see Chanukah as a festival that really, perhaps, has a lot of layers to it, and perhaps meaning that we wouldn't attribute immediately to Chanukah. Usually, the story of Chanukah is a very national story, particular story, that it's a story about fighting strange culture that wanted to overtake us as a people. And we fought against it, and we won, and we gained victory over it, and we pushed them aside, and we reestablished ourselves as a unique religion and culture here devoted to Hashem, keeping the people, the other culture and gods and religion out of our space. And it is true, Chanukah definitely stands for that. But it could be that at the same time, it also stands for something that might be opposite to it. It stands for Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon, the father of all humanity, that at this time of the year went in the darkness of winter and was worried about the world becoming this dark and scared place. And then later he sees that, it's getting okay. There is hope. And he is celebrating that hope through a festival. And it could be that Chanukah also has some of that hope, meaning our story of Chanukah is a manifestation of that archetype of the world becoming a dark place, where as Antiochus and his people were pressing us from and forcing us to forsake Hashem and to leave our mitzvot and Torah and to go with their gods. That was another manifestation of the way that this world could go dark in many ways. So our particular story is a manifestation of a much larger story that is part of the story of humanity, and that we also celebrate on Chanukah. And then there is a third aspect to it. Adam HaRishon, in a sense, he is the father of humanity, but he was also the archetype of the human being. And whatever he goes through, we all, each and every one of us, also goes through. And the same way that Adam HaRishon is lonely and scared on that dark, cold winter night, and the days are getting shorter, and he has no hope, and everything is closing upon him. And then in the middle of winter, all of a sudden, things start to get slightly better. All of a sudden, today wasn't as short as yesterday. And the day after, wow, even a bit longer, few seconds more than last day, and another day and another day. And that, in that sense, we all go through such periods in our lives. We all go through winter, and then we realize things are okay. And in all of these, so right, we live our lives, we could say, in three circles, right? We're individuals, we belong to a nation, and we belong to humanity. And all of these three circles play a role in Chanukah. and it is the candle that represents all three layers. Oh, yes. So it's the candle that little light that in the middle of a dark winter night, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, right? It flickers in the night, and it is something that any minute a wind could come and blow it away. And we don't like bonfires. We don't like these huge, magnificent monuments. No, it's not a big Christmas tree. We don't light our house on fire. We have this small, tiny light that represents the hope, that the steady hope that Be'ezrat Hashem things will be better. So that is what I had to say today. And before I say what we're going to do next week, are there any questions?
Well, not exactly our topic. No, but I think people would enjoy this question. Is there any rabbinic teachings to the whole concept of gift giving in Chanukah? Rabbinic.
Good question.
Not commercialization, but rabbinic.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I don't know. Very good. Like Chanukah Geld.
I'm saying Chanukah Geld or present.
Right?
I'm saying, but I mean, obviously everyone thinks because it's Christmas, but I'm just curious, even way before that, if there's anything rabbinic.
It's a good question. I think
ask the rabbi who doesn't get there.
The Jews didn't celebrate the military victory until after 26 years.
I'm sorry, the Jews
didn't celebrate the military victory until
I don't know. It could be that they celebrated the partial victory even beforehand. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have a clear answer on that. So next week, I'm going to ask a very important question, and that is, for some reason, Chazal tied the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukiah to one's home. And what I'm going to explore next week on Chanukah already is the question is, what is that connection? Why is that connection between the Chanukah candle and our home? Is it by chance, or is it an essential connection that Chazal were pointing at? We'll see that Be'ezrat Hashem next week. Yom Tov.
Check the internet. Only the first